Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. We have a presentation with a new to market company called Infield Minerals. They listed a few weeks ago on the TSXV. So really looking forward to digging into this Nevada exploration story. CEO Avandra Nakano is here with me. I'll introduce her in just a second. Before we get started, as always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to know more about those, you can find them on the company's website in their presentation. And there will be a Q&A section at the end, so feel free to input your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. With that formality out of the way, I'd like to introduce Eva, and I probably butchered her last name, which is my trademark. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Deborah. Thanks so much for the introduction.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the listing. It's really exciting what you've got going on in Nevada. Seems to be a lot of activity there, so looking forward to learning more about you and the story. So feel free to jump right in.
Sure, well, I'll start and let you know a little bit about myself. I think I'm just like most other people that are involved in mining in one capacity or another. So whether you're a geologist, a mining analyst, or an investor, I think we all, at least to a certain degree, maybe some more than others, have an inner Indiana Jones in there that's drawn to the adventure of mineral exploration. And in my early career, I was very much drawn to mineral exploration and did a ton of field work in those early days. And then in 2010 to 2014 was my last purely technical role. That's when I joined the B2 Gold team. I was part of their resource and evaluation team there. So I had transitioned from collecting data in the field to analyzing, interpreting, and modeling that data in office. And those years at B2 really had a very significant impact on me because that was during a time when they were doing evaluations quite aggressively. That's when they made their last several major acquisitions. So I really did see it really did influence how I look at evaluations and how I view what is ultimately possible for a startup company that has the right team and the right assets, which is exactly what we have here at Infield. So our team, we're a team of mining entrepreneurs. We're extremely driven, and along with our shareholders, we're on a mission to make a transformative discovery. So that's why I'm so pleased to have this opportunity to share with you details of our project portfolio of gold, silver exploration assets in Nevada, and some of the things we have to look forward to with our upcoming exploration campaigns. So just to touch on a few more highlights here, the important thing to note is that we have a great portfolio in Nevada. Our most advanced asset is the drill-ready M1 property in eastern Nevada, in an area that's now being touted as Nevada's newest mineral trend, the Long Canyon Trend. And that will be the focus of our drilling campaign that's planned for later this summer in the latter half of August. We have 2,000 meters of RC drilling planned there. And then our pipeline projects are in western Nevada, east of the town of Tonopah, but 30 to 40 kilometers east of Tonopah, which is a famous historical mining district. A bit about our team. I already told you a little bit about myself and my background. Our VP of Exploration is Richard Dufresne. He has more than 30 years of experience. He was formerly with Camino Minerals as their VP of Exploration, and prior to that, he was Senior Geologist with Anglo American, managing all their Eastern Canada Exploration Office. Our CFO is Robert Chisholm. He's got more than 30 years experience in finance and administration in the public markets, and he's a CFO and partner of Adelaide Capital, which is a private merchant bank out of Vancouver. And then we're backed up by a really solid board. Our chair is Scott Ackerman. He's also with Adelaide Capital as president and CEO there. Elizabeth McGregor, she's a corporate director. In addition to Infield, she's also on the board of Kinross Gold and Orla Mining. Formerly, she was executive VP and CFO of Tahoe Resources, up until their acquisition by Pan American. And prior to that, she held various financial roles with Goldcorp. David Hladky is a professional geologist with more than 20 years experience. And Shervin Tamori is the founder and principal engineer of Minot Consulting engineering firm. So just to get the company details out of the way here, our shares outstanding are just shy of 48 million outstanding. Market cap's been in and around 11 million lately, so certainly a discount to peers and discount to our go public. Management is very much aligned with our shareholders, with management and board having 20% ownership, and a great balance with the remaining of our shareholders being institutions and family offices together, approximately 30%, and the remainder retail, high net worth, and others. Our cash position, realistically, this 4 million is already an outdated number now. That was as of June 4th when our go public transaction closed. So this being end of quarter, we'll have a revised number here. So Infield's extremely pleased to be working in Nevada, which is one of the best mining jurisdictions in the world, has a very lengthy history of mining, over 160 years of mining there, and discoveries to this day continue to be made in recent eras. So some great examples: Long Canyon, they've got a reserve of 2.2 million ounces there. So lots of great examples and lots of activities. Nevada's an incredibly mineral-rich jurisdiction. To put our properties and our portfolio on the map here, the M1 property is located about a 45-minute drive north of Ely. And our pipeline projects, Bandit and Desperado, are 30 to 40 kilometers east of the town of Tonopah. Well, I'll jump right into M1, as that's where we'll be drilling later this year. So the M1 project is located in eastern Nevada. It's in an area that's historically, when companies were flocking to the Carlin Trend and exploring for Carlin-style mineralization, east of that trend wasn't as recognized. The potential there wasn't as recognized in the past. However, in more recent era, with the discovery of Long Canyon and Kinsley Mountain, this potential is now being recognized. And it's a great opportunity to be getting in early and exploring in that region. So Long Canyon is the joint venture. Nevada Gold Mines owns that. It's the joint venture between Barrick and Newmont there. So one of the things that we really like about this property is that it covers this structural trend. The property length, it's about 10-kilometer long stretch. And really the whole way along, we see these structural features and anomalous mineralization, which to us is indicative of the potential for a really sizable system here. As I said, we'll be focused our drill campaign here in the north part of the property. That's scheduled to commence in the latter half of August. There is some historical drilling done here, and the historical operators, which was Freeport and Coeur, they were in here in the late 80s and early 90s. And they were specifically looking for Carlin-style mineralization. And that's what you see reflected in the drill core is what you would expect for a company in that era looking for Carlin-style. So a lot of shallow vertical RC holes. And our Infield's approach to exploration is quite different. Rather than drilling these vertical holes looking for Carlin style, basically, rather than looking for flat-lying disseminated bodies, we're targeting the structures themselves, which is when you look more into the Long Canyon, Kinsley Mountain style deposits, you do see more of a trend towards that end member of being more structural, even more so structurally related. And at the M1 property, which is about 30 to 40 kilometers southwest of Kinsley Mountain, that's what we see even more so is the anomalous mineralization being associated with those those fault zone rocks, which we call breccia. So just to touch on the historical work there and the opportunity that Infield has in following up on it. In the north zone where we'll be drilling, Freeport historically had drilled a 0.5 gram of gold over 15 meters, and that included an interval of 2.39 grams per ton gold over 1.5 meters. And what's important to note is they shut that drill hole down at 30 meters depth. That was a vertical hole. They didn't even assay for silver. They were so tunnel focused on Garland style. And similarly, Coeur drilled 0.5 gram of gold over 8 meters, and they shut that drill hole down at 24 meters depth. So there's a big opportunity here for Infield to follow up on those encouraging results and at the same time test whether the mineralization seen near surface, whether it extends across the interpreted structures. So that's what we have planned in late August. We will be testing the North Zone targets. Right now, we're actually revising the proposed drill plan. So we have a notice of intent permit already in hand from previously, but we are in the process of revising that plan. So when we get the revised plan, these targets on these drill holes will be updated because they'll be similar but slightly different. So earlier in the year, as part of the 2021 campaign, we drilled just shy of 2,000 meters in the South Zone. Those results weren't significant. However, we're utilizing that data to improve the targeting in the North. So as I said, we are revising and refining the targets in the North. And when we'll be submitting a revised permitting application to the BLM shortly. And when we're expecting it to be about a 10-day turnaround once the application is in. And once we have those permits in hand, we'll be able to announce we have the permits and here's what the revised drill targets look like. So the holes that you see here, they'll be similar, but a few differences based on our revisions. So that's the program. We have 2,000 RC meters planned there. It'll be commencing late August and continuing into September. And then realistically, just based on timing of the laboratories right now, with so much activity happening in Nevada, we can realistically anticipate results probably in November. So there'll be a chance at the end for some questions if anyone has questions about the M1 property and what we have planned there. I'll just briefly touch on our pipeline project. So Desperado is in Western Nevada. It's 40 kilometers east of Tonopah in a historical Ellendale mining district. What put us onto this project initially was this large clay alteration footprint that we identified and went out and staked this ground. So we own this property 100%. And basically what that means, the clay alteration footprint, what that means is that there was a large heat engine that cooked up these rocks and has the ability to mobilize fluids carrying gold and silver and the ability to concentrate gold and silver here. So that's what made us aware that, hey, there's an interesting area here. Something's going on. There's old gold silver prospects here. Let's check it out. And a first pass reconnaissance look returned just shy of 5 grams per ton gold with a silver kick, and nearby a 2 gram sample of quartz vein and prospect pit there. And then we recently announced the results of a soil campaign that we did over that area. So we've outlined 3.5 kilometer by about 500 to 800 meter silver gold target area that we'll be advancing here. So this is a great pipeline project where we're advancing it quite rapidly, or aiming to advance it quite rapidly with the view of building up some drill targets here as well. And it's a great location. It's lower elevation, so really this is a project that can be worked year round. There's no seasonal restrictions for us there, and lots of road access throughout that property. And then Bandit is nearby. It's 30 kilometers east of Tonopah. There are some great high-grade gold silver samples right at surface here. It is in the U.S. Forest Service, which means it's a longer timeline for advancing this project, but it is there in the pipeline for us. All right, so we've come a long way in the last year since inception, and advanced these properties, advanced M1 to a drill-ready status. We've acquired the Desperado property, and we completed a listing on the TSX Venture Exchange, which we're extremely pleased to be trading there. So some of the things we have to look forward to, some of our catalysts, is one, receiving the revised drill permits, and then commencing the drill campaign in the latter half of August. And of course, results to follow on that. And at the same time, we do have surface exploration planned at Desperado, so we'll be working that project up as well. So just to summarize, we have an excellent portfolio in Nevada, 3 gold silver exploration projects. They're located in one of the best mining jurisdictions in the world. We've got a experienced team that's extremely aligned with our shareholders, and we have a really exciting drill program coming up this summer. And I'll turn it back over to Deborah.
Thanks, Eva. That was a really great presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. So just talking about M1, if you can go back maybe to the slides there, and your plans for, you said that you're hopefully going to begin drilling towards the end of August?
Yes, so we're currently targeted for an August 23rd start, but this is flexible to either side because the drills are very busy on lots of projects, and we've wedged our way in and was able to secure a drill. And so there's some flexible start date there depending on when the drill comes off the campaign of other projects that they're working on.
Well, that's great you were able to get a drill, because I understand rig availability and labor in the region right now is a bit challenging.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, we wedged ourselves in there because this was obviously an important part of our exploration. So definitely we wanted to make sure we got that drill secured.
And so you're planning 2,000 meters of RC. And I know we talked about this in the past, but I think it's somewhat relevant. In Nevada, it's more common to do RC than core drilling. Maybe you can explain some of the dynamics around that for our audience.
Yeah, so RC drilling, especially in our case where this is really an initial test of these targets, just to put things in context, this campaign, our 2021 exploration here is really the first real exploration on the property since the early 90s. And we really have a new target model that we're testing. So with this being a first pass, RC is a great option because you don't want to go spend your entire capital budget on an initial pass campaign. And core drilling is quite a bit more expensive than RC. So RC is a great way to get in, test some of the targets and see, is there encouraging mineralization here that we might come back with a core drill and follow up and better refine some of those targets. In addition to that, Nevada is a desert after all, and core drilling does use quite a bit more water than RC. So that's another reason that companies tend to, not only is it cheaper, but it uses less water. So it's a reason why a lot of companies in Nevada go the RC route, at least at the initial phases.
And it seems like you do have a significant amount of data already to help you plan your drill program in the north. Can you talk a little bit about what your strategy is and what techniques you've employed to determine your targets?
Yeah, for sure. So the strongest targets, of course, is when you have multiple layers of data that all more or less say the same thing. You want them to all point towards or vector towards the same targets. So we have the historical drilling information. So the two examples that I outlined earlier of historical drill intersections. We've got the geochem assays at surface, combine that with the geology, the mapped fault zone rocks, those breccia rocks. And we also did geophysics last fall, and that was part of building this up to a drill ready target. We did geophysical grid over the north zone. And that was induced polarization, or IP. So that tests the chargeability and the resistivity of the rocks at depth. And we want to see those coincide well with all of the other information which they do. So those are the targets we see that we'll be testing with this upcoming campaign.
Makes sense. And so if you're drilling towards the end of August, early September, when can the market expect to see some results out of M1?
It's hard to nail down exactly because the lab times are really out of our control, but my best guess would be sometime in November.
Okay. And then during the fall, you also plan to do some work on Desperado, some baseline studies to bring it up to potentially be
actually this summer we'll be drilling, not drilling, this summer we'll be planning a geophysical survey grid, so IP and mag at Desperado. So that information, of course, we'll utilize, and results dependent, be looking to utilize that information along with some additional geology and sampling to build up some drill targets there.
Okay, so it sounds like you're going to have some decent news coming through the fall.
And just to back up your last question there about our targets at M1, I'll point out that we do have a lot better information here in the North Zone. These are some of our best targets on the property, which really the only reason we haven't drilled them already is because the access in the North Zone is a little higher elevation, which means we have to wait for the summer to get in here. So that's why we're planning it for the summer. Those two example drill holes that I had pointed out, the one that Freeport drilled that intersected a half gram of gold, if you can see my cursor, that's the location of that historical drill hole here. That was a vertical hole. So as you can see, these red outlines, these are the IP anomalies. And so if their vertical hole was colored here, it would not have intersected that. However, it did intersect some brecciated rocks, and it did intersect some grade north of 2 grams there. And so we'll be drilling and testing across the interpreted structure based on the combination of the geology, geochem, and the geophysics here. And similarly, the historical hole number 20, which was the hole drilled by Coeur, half a gram of gold, that was an angled hole. However, they shut that down at 24 meters depth, so you can see they would not have tested across this interpreted structure here. So we're going to be collaring at or near those historical holes as a starting place, because it's at early stages, it's always best to go from known to unknown. So we have a great known starting place, and we'll be testing those exciting targets that we have outlined using the IP in combination with the geology and geochem.
Great. Well, it sounds like you've got some really interesting targets to drill. I don't see any questions from the audience, and I don't have that many more myself. I think you did a really thorough job of explaining the company. Seems interesting. You referenced closer to the beginning of the presentation that you're trading at a discount to some of your Nevada peer group, which I did look at some of the other market caps of companies that don't yet have a resource. And it looks like you're trading at about half the valuation. So I think it's an interesting time for Infield. You've got multiple targets to drill this fall, some other baseline work that'll come out, and hopefully you'll trade back up to at least where I think intrinsic value would be. So yeah, thanks for presenting. I like that you have a strong management team, great alignment. I think you yourself you're the most significant shareholder. And
Yeah.
I noticed you were buying stock in the market this week, which is great to see. And yeah, it's a great project in a great jurisdiction. You've got some high probability targets. So exciting times. Looking forward to seeing the results in the fall. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you wanted to touch on?
I don't think so. Just to summarize, I guess, is that, we've got the right team, the right projects, we're in the right jurisdiction. And I like to think that the best recipe for success is doing what you love. And we absolutely love what we're doing here. We're incredibly passionate about making a discovery. And I know many of our supporters feel the same way.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much for taking some time before the holiday. I know it's a little bit slower day today, but really appreciate the update and looking forward to seeing some results. Thanks everyone for participating, and have a good afternoon.